All right, on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, superstitions and sports pretty much go hand in hand, but the logos on the floor of the locker room seems to be getting a lot more press lately. And is it that one a little bit out of control? We're going to address that one and others on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Definitely subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that is in the show notes below. And when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one and give us your opinions, like we will today, on Ross Colton. He is our season preview, which you can see if you're watching over on YouTube. We'll get to him a little bit later. Two questions came in through the email mode. Very good ones about players becoming coaches and GMs. So we'll talk about that. But where we want to start today, why not? I mean, the Avs are playing right now, but we can't watch it. Another one of those preseason games that we can't watch, but you can tune in to Connor McGahey if you'd like to do that. Game's coming down to the wire as we're recording this. There's less than 10 minutes left, and I think it's still 1-1, right?
It is.
Avs,
It is
Avs
indeed.
A short-handed goal by Andrej Pavel, I believe. So good to see him. I mean, I think this is his first preseason game because he was a little bit injured, but hey, a shorty from the youngster. You gotta love that.
Great. More people that we have to decide on who's going to fit in that fourth line.
I think it's too little too late for him, if you ask me. But where we're going to start today, sir, we're going to be a little bit all over the place today, but this has come back up again, and it's always been there, right? But anything Connor Bedard does right now is that's the NHL's version of Taylor Swift right now. No matter what Connor Bedard does, hockey people are going bananas over it. And he was doing a post-game interview. I think it was after this first preseason game. And one of the no-nos in the hockey world is the logo. If the logo's on the floor in the locker room, you don't step on it. And apparently somebody did, and he saw it, and he didn't really say anything. He didn't berate the person or anything, but he was a little bit peeved by it. And you're seeing this now everybody's got to talk about this again, even though we know that it's been a superstitious thing. We'll get into superstitions in general, but what is your take on this specifically? Logos on the floor in the locker room. Is it a no-fly zone? Don't go over there? Or is this hey, it's on the floor, it's where I walk, what do you want me to do?
If the Avs needed a center who can't skate and they wanted to give me 13.5 as my jersey number, I would show up in that locker room and I would sit in there and they would say, don't step on that logo on the floor. I would say, fine. Right. It would not affect me one way or another. And honestly, if you did an anonymous poll on these players, I think there's a 60 to 70% majority of these players that would say it doesn't matter. It's just locker room politics. If you just don't step on the logo because the captain said don't step on the logo, they know who's going to fall in line for the team or who's going to be the diva. And kind of just shake things up. I think that's all that is. I don't think it's a superstition thing. I think it's a way of kind of towing the line and just being a team. I don't think it's so much of a superstition anymore as they like to portray it as, because I can't remember the last time we get to the end of the season and somebody's wrapping up their season summary by saying, we would have had such a better season if insert player name here didn't
Right,
step on the
yeah.
logo.
Greg Wyshynski from ESPN is taking this and running with it, and I'm kind of loving it because he just thinks it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's like, this is where like floors are designed to walk on, and he's kind of the mind of like, if you don't want anybody walking on the logo in the locker room, don't put the logo on the floor in the locker room. And you're seeing this. A lot of teams are now putting it on the ceiling. The Avalanche are one of those teams that have done that. But if it's a remodeled or new locker room, there's not going to be a logo on the floor just to prevent this stuff. And I'm with you. Like, I think it's a little bit silly, but I would respect it. And the tough thing is, like, that's where a lot of people are. There's a lot of foot traffic in there, not just from the players, but that's where the press goes after a game is over. And it's tough. Sometimes those locker rooms can be cramped. It's tough to not step on it. So if you don't want them doing it, then do some things so it doesn't happen. And if you can't, I'm not saying like if you can't have the locker room remodeled, because obviously that's money, whatever teams have that, then put something over the logo, like put a board or something over the logo. So we're not just getting annoyed at this, because I just think it's a little bit silly, but I also understand it and I also respect it. And I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, but it's just, if someone's going to do it, like, I can almost guarantee you it's not on purpose. So don't go after that guy because he might have had a heel on the logo or something.
And I love that it's a different meaning in every sport. Like we just saw it with the Colorado Buffs. Like they're disrespecting the logo by walking on it on the 50-yard line. Well, then why is it on the field? If it's such a cherished logo,
yeah.
just put it on the sidelines or up, like floating on the ceiling or something. Like
you're gonna have to play on that logo. And it's the same for hockey. You got to skate across the logo at center ice.
You drop the puck on center ice. You tip off in the NBA at center court. Like
yeah.
On the logo, that's your pan down shot. Like it's ridiculous to me, and like that it's still going on. I feel like it's just one of those. Can you believe he stepped on the logo? Like this guy, he doesn't know what he's doing, and it's your way of like saying, "Hey, observe the locker room and how we do things in here, and you're going to be just fine." I feel like that's where it is. But to go the Connor Bedard thing, like my gosh, how many highlights have I seen of him just deking? I would love to see this goal come along. Like, come on, let's do something. But oh my gosh, it's blowing my mind. Look at this deke. You got to find something on this Bedard kid to keep the hype going. If this is it, whatever, it just makes me ready for the regular season to finally get going.
Yeah, but and if it wasn't him, it probably wouldn't be getting brought up. I know like somebody in Pittsburgh on the Steelers put up like orange cones around their logo in the locker room, and I'm just like, again, I get it, but let's have a little bit of leeway here. And this just goes into like superstitions in general. And I get it, it's big in sports, especially hockey, massive superstitions. The big one is, not touching the conference championship trophies. Those to me are sillier than not stepping on the logo. If you were to tell me to rank some superstitions, I would definitely put don't step on the logo in the locker room. And I just made my feelings known on that. I'd put that higher than not touching the trophy. I think not touching the trophy, the conference trophies, is one of the more dumb ones, if you ask me, in professional sports. I don't like that at all.
I've never understood why that's a thing and why that's bad luck. And again, it's one of those that you go to the cup and you lose in the cup final. And we would have done this if we didn't touch that conference final. Guess what? If you lose in the cup final, that's the only trophy you're going to be touching. So what does it matter?
Right. I mean, I've always said, like, you get to a Stanley Cup final, like, and when you're in the conference final, that's an achievement. Celebrate it. Celebrate that achievement. You don't know when you're going to be back there again. So yeah, you lose or if you win the conference final, don't touch the trophy. Lose in the Stanley Cup final, you obviously don't get to touch that trophy, and you never get back there again. You've not touched a trophy in your entire career. And the statistics show it doesn't matter. It actually, The Athletic put this up right before the Golden Knights and the Panthers went in to their Stanley Cup final. And they went back to 1997, and they went to all the conference finals where one team touched it in one conference final and the other team didn't touch it in the other conference final. And there's 11 times that's happened. 8 of those times a team touched it and then won the Stanley Cup. So there goes your theory. If you're one of the don't touch the conference final championship trophies, means nothing. Means absolutely nothing. And I really wish this would end, but it's never going to.
It's almost to the point of the sports equivalent of step on a crack, you break your mother's back. You know it's dumb, but every time you get close to a crack, it crosses your mind, and you're like,
does, yeah. You're like,
I'm going to step over this.
And that goes, the chalk lines in baseball.
Yep.
You're always going to hop over those. Again, it doesn't really. To me, like when I played baseball, I didn't like stepping on the chalk lines because I didn't want to. I liked the uniformity of it. I like it; just had a nice look to it. I didn't want to step on it to agitate that nice chalk line. Had nothing to do with superstition. So that's why but I didn't make this like dramatic leap over the chalk line like you see some guys do. I just stepped over it.
I did the same thing when I played baseball because I didn't want my coach yelling at me.
Yeah, because exactly. You're gonna have to hear from it because there was rules probably. Don't step on the chalk lines. But it's fun. Like throw out some superstitions. I know the beard is one, the playoff beard is one that and those are fun ones, right? Those are fun ones. So those are fine. But I'm sure there's a lot of people who have superstitions on how you taped up your stick or how you put your equipment on the same all the time. Henrik Lundqvist had a great pregame routine he did every single day. Stuff like that's just kind of like fun. But if he strayed from it a little bit, did that make him play bad? No. But you keep going with that stuff. So it's fun. All right, let's continue some fun discussion here, and we're going to talk about players who retire and then get into either front office work or behind the bench. Do we like it? Does it work? We'll talk about that next. But first, we are going to talk about Indeed. And when you are drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, then you need Indeed. And Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. And if you hate waiting, Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. So Indeed knows when you're growing your own business and you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. So if you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, we got a good email from Mr. Allen, who sent us an email with a couple questions. And we'll answer both of them. Well, let's answer the second one first because the first one is kind of fun. But he asks, let's see, would like your opinion on whether you think former players make better coaches and GMs? And you see this a lot, obviously. Players go into the coaching profession. Some, like our Joe Sakic, go into the front office profession as GMs and have success. But I don't know what like percentages are in terms of people that succeed. I don't know what you would consider successful or not successful. But in hockey, I think, a lot of guys want to become coaches. You see it up and down the league. I would say they go more towards the coaching ranks first than like front office stuff. And do I have a problem with it? No, I feel like they know the sport. So, but I think being a GM is, I'm not saying coaching is easy. I'm not
No.
saying that at all. But I think being a GM could be a little bit more of a difficult position than a head coach for a former player.
Yeah, I think a former player, I think you have a longer leash when it comes to being a coach, because if you are just somebody who just understands the game of hockey, if you the second that locker room kind of turns on you, or your voice is just kind of just background noise, that's it. You're done. But
Yeah.
with coaches like Rod the Bod Brindamore,
Right.
Martin St. Louis, like those are guys that you're like, okay, this guy's been there. He understands what's going on. Maybe I need to listen. He's going to give me some insight because he's been there. He's gone through training camp. He's gone through preseason and practice. I'm going to listen to this guy. And like even like Jared Bednar, he technically is a former player. He had some like hockey experience as a player,
Sure.
but just the way he relates to that locker room, because he understood that grind and that push and that, and it's not always successful, but you just got to stick to it. That also translates.
Right. I don't know why I feel this way. Like when players retire and then immediately get a head coaching job at the pro level,
Yeah.
for some reason that bothers me.
Yeah.
I just feel like you haven't like cut your teeth. Like you haven't gone through the ranks. Like you've never coached at any level, and then a team is going to hire you at the premier level of the sport. That's always bothered me. And I'm not saying like they don't deserve it. They clearly know the sport, but coaching is different.
Yeah.
Just because you're successful on the ice as a player doesn't automatically mean you're going to be successful as a coach. And there's a lot more to it than that. You got to have good players around you. You got to be in the right system. You got to be, have a good front office, and all of that stuff comes into play. But I don't know, like that's always just been a thing to me personally. Like, and I've always remembered for some reason Jason Kidd.
I was just about to say Jason Kidd.
Were you really? Like,
yep.
That one sticks out to me for some reason. I know it happens a lot.
Aaron Boone,
pretty good. Aaron Boone's another one. Yeah.
He still gets jobs, which it's because he's been there and they understand.
Well,
like they want that insight.
I get it. And it's same goes for when guys retire and want to go into broadcasting.
Yeah.
And it's like you've never like that used to be an art. You know what I mean? Like the guys that you would listen to were just had the voice, like you went to school for that stuff. And now we just hire them because it's a face and people know that face and they'll tune in to watch them. And yes, they've played the game, but again, it's different in a broadcast booth. You got to be able to project that, and you got to be able to explain to millions of people what's going on so they can digest it easily. And that's not easy to do. So I don't like it. And again, this is another thing this is just where we are with sports. Guys that retire, Tom Brady just did it. You have no idea if Tom Brady is going to be good in the booth, right? No clue. But you have guys that do this stuff, and they're going to go into the broadcasting booth. They're going to be head coaches, and some are going to be GMs, and the people who kind of want to do this the I guess the quote unquote right way and go into school are behind the eight ball because they're fighting with former professional athletes, and it's not fair to them, but it's what sells. It's what the dollar is. So, yeah. Anything else on that?
I know. And when it comes to GMs, like we kind of got lucky with Joe Sakic, and you get like, but that's a much smaller number of former NHL guys that go to the GM, because the dollars and cents and what keeps the lights on doesn't really entertain a lot of guys. They just want to stay close to the game and impart their wisdom. That's why you see a lot of them go the coaching ranks.
Sure. Yeah. So his other question is, he goes, if we decided to step aside from Locked On Avalanche, blasphemy, who would you want to take your place from the current Locked On NHL hosts across the network. I'm going to cheat on this a little bit because I'm not going to pick someone from the Locked On NHL world. I'll give you two answers here. One is someone with Locked On NHL or Locked On, just the Locked On network. And that's Paul Holden over at Locked On Rockies. Just because I feel bad for Paul needing to report on the Rockies and do a show day in and day out on that team right now. So I would almost want him to, and I don't really know if he's a hockey guy. I think he is, like he fought, but I don't know if he's like, I think he's just I don't want to call him a fair weather fan. I'm not saying that. Just he's a casual hockey fan.
Yeah.
But I would almost want him just to be able to host this show, just to be able to talk about a team that's winning a little bit more than the Rockies are. And my second answer would be, I would want somebody completely brand new that's never been with the network, because that was you and I. I mean, I did podcasting for years, but in different forms. But I got into, doing it with Locked On, and they took a chance on me, and then I, brought you in. So I like that. And here I am talking about people that have never done, sports broadcasting before. And maybe that's why I feel that way, is because people like you and I just got to be given a chance. And I think we're pretty good at this. So that'd be my other answer.
Yeah, I would have gone with Cody from Locked On Broncos.
So you're staying in the Colorado state. Yeah.
He understands. And I mean, we have a cup, so enjoy it a little bit over here.
Yeah.
And if I had to go Locked On NHL, you know what? I'm just going to throw it to Denker. Adam Denker, Locked On Lightning. Come on over, bud.
I don't know if he would do that. He likes the Avs. He's not against them. So, and that I think you'd have to go east and bring someone from the east.
Because see, I painted it in my mind as, if I'm going away, you're still going to be sitting here. So
yeah,
you can run this with Denker.
That'd be fun. I mean, those NHL shows we did for a few years were definitely fun. We had to step away from that though. But all right. So one more bit of business to get to, and that is Mr. Ross Colton and his season preview. And we're going to do that next. But first, we're going to talk about FanDuel. And you can snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel. That's America's #1 sportsbook right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. And that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So go visit fanduel.com/lockedon right now to get those $200 in bonus bets. And again, you get those win or lose. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. Ross Colton. So this is 2 days in a row where we've done new Avalanche. We did Ryan Johansen yesterday, Ross Colton today. And I think he's another one that is going to excite Avs fans. It's kind of like this new approach that they took for the type of team that you're going to see this year. A little bit more physical, a little bit more short up down the center. Definitely more short up in faceoffs. I keep talking about how excited we are about faceoffs when you've been so inept at it for the last handful of seasons. To no longer be that way is exciting to me. But faceoffs aside, I think fans are going to be excited for what they get out of Ross Colton.
And I intentionally pulled Ross Colton today, right after Ryan Johansen, because we all remember back when we talked to the previously mentioned Adam Denker of Locked On Lightning. The Lightning had plans to also build a lot of the Lightning around Ross Colton and what he brings. They loved his play and would have loved to bring him back. They couldn't afford to, and we are the benefit of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ryan Johansen, everything we said about Ryan Johansen yesterday, and everydayers, if you didn't get a chance to listen, go back and listen to Ryan Johansen's season expectations, because if he doesn't live up to those expectations, Ross Colton has every tool in the tool bag to take that 2C if need be. And especially
Sure.
with his line mates and, like you've been mentioning, Chris, his face-off ability, it's one of those that there is no, if let's just say Ryan Johansen doesn't live up to the hype, you could drop him down to 3C. Ross Colton comes up to 2C. No one is losing sleep over that because you're going to be good either way.
I think the only sleep you would lose is, well, we brought in Ryan Johansen to be the 2C, and he can't handle that for whatever reason. But in terms of replacing, if it ever gets to that level, let's hope it doesn't. Yeah, I think who you're bringing in is, to replace him for hopefully a short term, is okay. I think it's okay. And getting over to our subtext people, Vargar says Ross will end up. Here you go, man. Ross will end up as the 2C, surpassing Johansen. Colton will get 27 goals, and he says 53 points. And not only that, also becomes a fan favorite.
Off that
question.
First preseason game, he was noticeable, and his game, I just kept thinking about, boy, I'd love to see this in like a 4 or 5 game stretch and him build off this and the team build off that. I got excited as well. I think that's going to I agree, Vargar. Great minds.
As far as you pick those like fan favorites, and those are kind of like those like unsung heroes, like Darren Helm was stuff, like guys like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Brad Hunt for 2 weeks.
Everybody loves the Cale Makars of the world, right? But I think that's a good point that he makes. Like, Colton could be that guy. That just the way he plays. I think Miles Wood could be that guy.
Yeah.
Just for those guys that just put in like maximum effort all the time. So I think he makes a good point there. Easton, pretty simple numbers here: 20 goals, 20 assists, 40 points. Flashes of upside, and he gets better at penalty kills and second unit power play as the year goes on.
Absolutely agree. I'm excited to see what it looks like on the power play and what might be a PP1 guy.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible. So, I think he slides in there if there's just somebody that, if like Johansen's struggling or something on the power play one. I can't really imagine anybody else really struggling that much where you'd take them out, but he would be the only one.
Look at the logo that you probably have in arm's length. We're Avalanche fans. Injuries happen. If he has to slide to fill in for somebody, we are going to be fine.
Yeah, no, and I think that's part of it. It's kind of what they did with JT Compher all those years, but it didn't really work out, with the exception of last year for JT Compher. So I just feel, and maybe it's just like the newness of Colton. Maybe it's that, where I just feel like what the potential of what he could bring to the team. I feel kind of excited about that. And just because you knew what you had in JT Compher for all those years. And with Colton, let's see, what's his, so the past 2 years in 21-22, he had 39 points. Last year he had 32 points. And the past couple of years, he's been durable. 79 games played in 21-22, 81 last year. So that's another thing that you have to like about him.
And those point totals also are not coming over averaging 15 minutes per game. He has not gone over 15 minutes of time on ice per season, and he's still logging those kind of numbers. So,
but look at like where how are we saying with Johansen? Like, and we threw out his numbers yesterday. That's what you want in your 2C, the good years. The good years in that 55 to 65. That's what you want out of him, on top of everything else that he can do with his defense and his face-offs and stuff like that. Colton is the same for the third line.
Yep.
You maybe go up a little bit. If you can reach that 40-point barrier as your third line center and still be great on, obviously, penalty kill or even in the face-off dot, it's what you want. So they've input players in their respective lines and they're just asking them to obviously be the best that they can be. And their history shows like they can do that for Johansen for the second line, Colton for the third line. And if Colton needs to prop it up for a couple games because someone's hurt or whatever, you have confidence that he's capable of doing that and he can take that on.
Yep.
So that's where we're at. I think overall, again, things are looking pretty good for the Avalanche. What's the score? Is it over?
It is over. 3-1 Dallas.
3-1. What the heck happened in the last 7-8 minutes?
Joe Pavelski 2-1, and then
empty netter.
Another one, garbage time.
Empty netter. Okay. All right. Well, whatever. Dallas had a lot of their pros going in this one.
Regular season's around the corner. This game doesn't matter.
No, of course not.
Pavel got a shorthanded goal.
Hey, hung with them for, that's a lot of young guys that the Avs had out there, and they hung with them for most of the game. So, I'm sure we'll see some stats and
Eustace got a nickname. So,
what'd you say? Oh, it was Juice?
Yeah, Juice.
Juice. Okay. I like that. I'll go with that. I'm happy.
How do we feel about that?
All right. Comments away in the comment section for anything we talked about here today. But that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Locked On Avalanche. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we will see you guys tomorrow.